999 hours in the game. Well then. So, over the last 2 years, we've had a very great game. It's been out Railroader, and obviously a lot of stuff is happening. And recently, well, recently being yesterday at the time of recording, we got a update for what the developers have been doing over the last 2 months of the game, because they've been working on MOW since March of this year. So it'll be interesting to see what they've been up to. Of course, I've already read it, so I know exactly what's going to happen. But I'm going to reiterate for the people who may not be paying attention, as well as this is my first ever Steam game that is going to hit 1,000 hours. I am currently zero point 0.8 hours of playtime off of my first game being at 1,000 hours, and my second most played game is Railroads Online at 500 hours. And that's been since the game started getting traction. So that's a lot longer than Railroader. So it definitely shows how well this game has been put together so far. But anyways, the November 2025 development update. Before we even start reading, if we look here at the banner, we'll notice that we have tractors and there's presumably a K35 right behind them. But another thing we'll notice is right here, the crossing, because there's a gate there and a light active. So this might mean that we're getting crossing gates into major areas of the game. One of them obviously being Bryson, and potentially anywhere that is 2 tracks or more where a road is crossing, or even just CTC designated mainline. It could be part of the CTC milestone so that you can detect trains on the track and you know when to set off crossings, yada yada yada. But regardless, let's start reading. Hello, Railroaders. Can you believe it's almost been 2 years since Railroader was released in early access? Some of you have been with us since before it was called Railroader. Many of you have joined us along the way, and many of you have become familiar with the game. Whether you are an old head or a greenhorn, we want to sincerely thank you for your support. We've been fortunate to hear from many of you over the last couple of years how much Railroader has meant to you. Our small dev team feels a lot of responsibility as stewards of the game. Keep in mind, there is a rough estimate on the development team being a group of 5 people. So, for them to make a game that has gotten so much traction is amazing, and I cannot wait to see MOW when it releases in the near future. I hope it's right around the corner, but we'll see. In our last development update, we covered some features that we've been working on to support maintenance of way, the MOW update, including enhanced car loads, expanded industries at Hewitt, and an interchange at Almond. What have we been up to since then, you ask? Well, we've been thinking about a lot of modding. So, there's gonna be some controversy here. So recently, people would have known that Samu has left. So that means Railloader will most likely not be supported come MOW update. But MOW will release on the experimental branch and will probably be on it for a few months. So for people who still want to use anything that Railloader has to offer, you can always stay on the main branch, or you could choose to just take your chances. When the update comes out, we'll see what happens, but as of right now, I presume that it will break due to the mass amounts of modifications regarding some of the stuff that Railloader can do. Another thing is we don't actually have any images for the interchange at Almond, so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. So, let's go down to this next section. Building towards official modding support. Modding has been a remarkable, unofficial part of Railroader since not long after it was released. We have been amazed at what modders have created, and continue to create for the game. While modding support is on our roadmap, it's something that we have thought as one of our biggest, one of the last big features before Railroader leaves early access. Simply because we don't want to break mods, we don't want modding support to prevent us from making necessary changes to the base game in working on the car loads features. However, it became clear that to build it right, we need to build towards official modding support. Before we get into details, it's important to acknowledge that modding is a very broad topic. Mod runs the game, gamut. I don't know what they tried to say there. They change parts of cars, introduce new cars and engines, or add track and industry scenery, augments the UI. Some even aim to create whole new maps. As much as we want to provide support and tooling for all these I can't pronounce it, of modding, the reality is that it's not possible at this point with our limited resources. Map modding in particular is one that we would love to support, but due to the richness of the game and the complex features like CT signals and CTC, map progressions, and more, let alone editing the UI, it's not practical to support map modding without some pretty significant limitations, which we do not see as a great solution. Our plan for this update in terms of modding support is that it will focus on two areas of modding, but we plan to consider how we expand support for modding in the future. So this is where it gets a little there's some great features and some controversy stuff, which I'll talk about when we get down there. But continuing on to something that I think will be really useful, especially in the modding area, is mod loading and dependency management. So I'll just read this out and then I'll explain it. Railroader has unofficially supported adding new equipment to the game through asset packs since day one. It's a part of our internal development workflow. But there have been some critical aspects missing, namely dependency management and support for encoding mods in save games and handling them in multiplayer. To improve this, we've been working on revamping asset packs with the following technical details incoming. Asset packs now have strong identifiers in the format domain/identifier. All built-in asset packs use the domain RR for Railroader. Asset packs now have versions. Asset packs can define versionized dependencies and will load in dependency order. Definitions, equipment, scenery, and more in a pack must have a unique identifier with the domain. If the game defines railroader/ls280-C46, the consolidation 46, you could define your name /ls280-C46. This simplifies creating variants of existing equipment and helps avoiding conflicts. Asset packs with a matching name no longer override other, including mod information and save games. So some of the good stuff here is that instead of having to look for a broad lot of things, so with the current system, every time you want to call an asset, it has to go find that asset. But with the new system, there's a domain name, so it can just look for that domain. Once it finds the domain, it can find what it's looking for. Obviously, with large asset packs like the A&R's asset pack, there's so many assets in there, it still does reduce load time a bit, but if they do split it up into multiple categories, then it could be good. Like, say, A&R dash building or something. Now, I think this is a great idea, because it allows for two different things that are called the exact same to exist, so you don't have to think about a new name for all your items, like CBL. CLB, I call him CBL because it rolls off the tongue better. But with his asset pack mod, he already does this with an identifier class, CBL, and then whatever it's called. With the new update, he might very much change it to where it will be CBL will be his domain, and then there'll be the identifier, because it's already what he does. Granted, everyone will have to do this, but oh well. The second thing which I think is going to be very controversial is Relay, which is a scripting language that they made themselves. So I'll read this next little bit, and then we'll go over a little bit of it. This is Relay. This is a big one. Railroader now has its own scripting language. It's called Relay. Relay scripts can be used to manipulate definition data during loading process, similar to Factorio's modding system. For example, Example, a data.rail loader script in an asset pack can change values on any equipment in the game, adds or removes components, or creates whole new variants of existing equipment, all without having to duplicate the asset files. Add scripts to control components on equipment in its responsibility to property changes. Example, show or hide a stakes model on a flat car based on whether it's appropriate for the car's current load. Extends the UI. Adds controls to existing windows, create new windows, or create console/commands. Main.rl scripts are used for this. Some of you are probably wondering, why create our own language? In short, creating our own language enables us to better control the performance impact of the in-game scripting system, offer a modern syntax, and maintain a safe sandboxed scripting environment. We think these are two areas of modding support that offer some pretty exciting possibilities. Now, while I could understand their concerns for optimization because the game is heavily unoptimized at this current stage, it's a lot of controversy because they're having to make this from scratch rather than working on other things that they have in their roadmap and being able to release MOW, because I believe that both MOW and this will be releasing in the same version. So stuff like Map Enhancer can rotate over to reduce performance, I believe. But at what cost? And the cost is basically rewriting the entire thing and then figuring out how the new system properly works. But regardless, let's go on to the next section. Relay modding examples. Here are a few examples of relay in action. Remember that this is still in development. We welcome your feedback. You could create a mod to change prices of cars, adjust their capacity using a data.rl file. And the code is function on define data, and then the little description of what this code does is changes the price on the lightweight steel passenger car. Data.modify railroader. Osgood Bradley lightweight steel 1915 object equal to or greater than object definition base price equal 900. So that's changing the price on the steel. Another thing is creating a high capacity variant. Data.modify as Osgood Bradley lightweight steel 1915 itemize. I don't. Are they doing a little tag here? So this is the definition that they're using before, and then they just put in the name. So it's the Osgood Bradley lightweight high cap. They've added high cap to the end. And then what they're doing after this is they're doing object equal to or greater than variable metadata object metadata, variable definition equals object definition, metadata description is high capacity steel coach, variable slot 0 equals definition load slots 0, load slots 0 maximum capacity plus or equal to 20, definition base price plus or equal to 2000. Or this could also potentially be adding the equivalent of 20 or adding the equivalent of 2000. No idea how what this is interacting because I don't use an actual word for this. So that's with coach modification. So you can modify a majority of the existing files easier. So you could so stuff like historical freight equipment could probably more easily modify the files rather than having this mod that has to reintroduce all of these files and everything and increases load time by a bit. So another thing is you could create a customizable parts. Suppose I had created a new engine with a toggleable superheater detail model. In a script component on the engine, variable observer equals null. Function on model load car, variable superheater equals car components superheater detail model. Observe the property and update components enabled status is what this does. Observer equals car properties dot observe show superheater true value equal to or greater than superheater dot enabled equals value. So there's a bit of a feedback loop there, I believe. And then after all this, the function on model unload car observer.dispose observer equals none, so it removes the stuff from observer. And then in the main RL in the asset pack, from railroader import UI, function on mod load CTX adds a toggleable to the customized UI. UI.extend car inspector.equipment.customize. Matching identifier, the little thing, my engine, .with builder equal to or greater than builder.field toggle superheater. Then they just have an empty bracket, is equal to or greater than return car properties show superheater value equal to or greater than car properties show superheater equals value. These are only a couple of examples. Relay can also be used to create windows as a slash command to the console. A calculator can be summoned with slash calc. So they've managed to be able to put a calculator into the game as well with this. So this is where the controversy part is. This scripting system seems very much more complicated to use than the existing way of modding. Obviously, with mods that use Railloader as their dependent to load, if the game allows it, then we would have to obviously port over to this. Just due to the fact that Railloader will most likely break due to this update. But only time will tell. Anyways, let's read the rest of this post, and then I want to go over some modding updates that have happened over the last week. Perhaps you can see why this has taken some time to build. We are very excited to see what you build with it, and see it as being useful not only for modders, but also some more advanced railroaders. You know who you are. Who can use some basic scripting to help automate parts of your railroad. We're still hard at work on this, although we hope to get to a point where we can release an experimental branch soon. While this experimental might be a little rough around the edges, we think it's important to get this work out there and get feedback to shape it before its release on the main branch. Of course, this release has loads of other enhancements, but those will need to wait for another post. Till then, thank you as always for your patience and support. So that's what they've been up to. They've been making their own scripts, so that's why we haven't heard anything from them for 2 months. It'll be interesting to see the direction that official modding support goes, as it is starting now. I don't know if they have their roadmap anywhere here. I would love to pull up their roadmap. Oh, I don't want to do that. Let me see if I can't pull up their roadmap. Here we go. Here's the roadmap. Yes, I want to continue into an external site scene. So as you can see here, there's some stuff here. So if we look at modding support, it's a little bit on their list. But right now they're obviously in progress of MOW. And they want to do crouch, diesel horn customization, bell customization, mail service, and then we'll be starting to get into modding support. So they're getting very close to 1.0. And then once they do get to 1.0, we'll see a ton of extra things here. So some other stuff that we can see is this. So this released on the 2nd. This was last updated actually today, and was uploaded only last week. So today there's actually a new update. So I might actually quickly look at what the new update does. Shorten the station name so it fits better in the timetable. Yeah, that station name was a little long. So one thing that this mod is, so it's a steelworks. It's Cater Steelworks. So for anyone who has been following, you will have seen this already. For anyone who is following the project, because this project has been getting worked on since pretty much the start of this year, and it's finally done. So as you can see, it's a pretty big facility, and there's lots of switching maneuvers. But I will heed some warning here. Do not attempt to use medium curve radius locomotives in here, as they will derail on certain corners if you are not going 5 miles per hour in majority of this yard. And then here we can see all the different types of loads that appear throughout the industry. So with this comes into an 8 module part. This industry is in 8 parts. Each of those 6 of those parts work together to produce the output. 2 of them are purely for show. The 2 that are purely for show is the hybrid power plant and the maintenance. They do not affect any of the other industries, so you can set them at whatever tier you want, and it won't really matter. But the other ones, the coke oven, the blast furnace, the hearth furnace, and the rolling mill, all rely on each other to produce stuff. And then there's also a slag pit as well. There's also an interchange down in the main yard. And captive industries are coal, forced. So you can do captive industries of coal. So they're up at the Robertson. There is a loading area there for you to be able to load coal to send to the steelworks. You can do limestone if you have another one of Cater's mods installed. You can, and then there is also an internal captive of steel shavings. Now, there was actually an added iron captive recently to the mod, but you need to have an iron mine mod that allows captive output to do so. The force captives are coke coal from the coke oven to the blast furnace, molten iron from the blast furnace to the hearth furnace, slag from both the hearth furnace and the blast furnace down to the slag pit, steel from the hearth furnace to the rolling mill, and steel shavings, which get produced as a byproduct in the rolling mill, which gets sent back to the hearth furnace to get repurposed. This mod easily adds 300 cars to the game, and there is a readme file, which should be hopefully linked here. And this shows a lot more of the stuff. So it shows a better thing here of the all of these stuff here. So it shows everything that comes in and goes out. So as you can see, coal goes to the power plant at coke oven. Coke oven is also a byproduct plant which outputs coal tar and ammonia. The coke oven also outputs cooking coal, which goes to the blast furnace, which is where limestone and iron ore goes in, which creates molten slag as an output to the slag dump, as well as molten iron, which goes to the hearth furnace. You also need to supply limestone and scrap metal to the hearth furnace, as well as steel shavings. Steel shavings can be done as an interchange or a captive, depending on demand. The hearth furnace will do steel, will output steel, which goes into the rolling mill, as well as output molten slag as well. The rolling mill will then output steel shavings, and it will output the finals of coils, sheet metal, and rails, which you then load and send off to the interchange to get your money. There is also a chart here on what the recommended for each tier is to buy for what. And as you can see, the daily interchange cars is 162 in this example, but this is running full captive. All the ones on the top are not required captive services, but you can do them for extra money. There is also a thing with the earlier versions of the mod where limestone, every time at midnight, even if you were doing interchange servicing with it, would pay you, as well as coal is paying you. Coal is paying at a lot less of a rate than what it can, and limestone is just paying a really high amount for whatever reason. Something went wrong with the code in the early developments. I don't know if it's fixed, but that was an issue. The other mod that released was the Fontaline. Now, the images aren't obviously there. There's a lot of unique downloads and a lot of views. So what this mod does is it adds the line to Fonta. So as you would know from this is in 1950, right after the flood of Fonta. So obviously Fonta shouldn't exist. And some of the line shouldn't exist either, because it should be following the river. I don't believe a lot of the line does follow a river due to the fact that I don't think they added rivers into the mod. So there's that. But what this does do is it allows you to run around. So there's a line that goes around on the normal thing. So you go from next to Appalachian Hut, which you go all the way down to I can't remember where it is, but it goes back down and into where the Fonta Bridge is. There's no real map of this. I think I'm gonna pull one up. Give me 1 second, because I might have a map. Alright, so I found this site. While I can't get the route to show up, I can tell you what it did do from the reference of this map. So the line goes from Bryson, it goes up to Forney, and then to Bushnell, and then from Bushnell, it goes down to Almond. Just a lot. It goes to Whiting, I believe it actually is, which is where it merges back onto the existing main line. And then there was another line that kept going out this way to Fonta, which is about right here, I presume. So it was an interesting route. I believe if I take the train in the 1910s, it might show a better route. Yeah, here we are. So it shows the old mainline route. So you got Forney, Bushnell, Whiting, Almond, and Hewitt. So it went around with when the new line had to happen, it went round through here. There was also a line that went out this way along the river to Fonta. But obviously, it's not actually on these maps because these trains are along the entire branch, I believe. So yeah, this is a thing. This is what the line does, and at a full tier 5, it does roughly 100 cars a day. It's about 100 cars a day to do this line fully. They've also made a disclaimer that this mod will never be fully accurate, because railroad and map tiles work of current areas, meaning Fonta Lake is already filled in, causing what would have been the lake to be completely flat. You decided to fill Fonta anyways, so there's the Fonta line. Several areas were added, which are in historically accurate locations. Station stops are also accurate. So here's what it all adds. It's also incompatible with Mudge's Fonta Iron Mine, I can only assume why. But I'll let you quickly go through and see what these all are, and what all towns there are, and what stations there are. Now, some industries here, they are a forced industry, so when you unlock this said part of the line, you will do it. So as of right now, in the first version, from what I can see, the line just appears. So the line doesn't actually have proper milestoning yet, but to actually unlock said industries, you need to purchase the milestones. It's just the track that's being weird. Just keep in mind, to do this, you will need a set of map tiles as well, so just keep that in mind. There is also an interchange at Fonta itself. So, with that out of the way, that's basically everything that has happened in the last, 2 weeks. I hope everyone has enjoyed this update on what the modding community stands at and everything, as well as what Railroaders said they've done. And I hope you can all be excited for the turntables. But without further ado, I'll leave you here, and we'll see what happens next week. If we get the MOW update or not.